So if you're sitting the UCAT this year and you have no idea what to expect for test day, and if you also want to know the best ways that you can manage stress so that you can perform as best as you possibly can on your UCAT test, then this is the video for you, because I'll be sharing with you my whole experience doing the UCAT test last year in 2020, and I'll also be telling you guys about my top 3 tips for managing stress so that you can perform as best as you possibly can on the UCAT. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the YouTube channel. If you don't know me, my name is Emil and I'm a first year medical student studying at Monash University in Melbourne, Australia. And on this channel, we help high school students trying to get into undergraduate medicine in Australia. So if you're new here, consider subscribing. Since UCAT test day is coming up for a lot of you guys, and you may very well be feeling anxious and stressed, and fairly enough, I'll first get into what my UCAT testing experience was actually like when I did the test last year. Because when I did the test last year, I had absolutely no idea what to expect from testing day, and this is the video that I wish I had had. So to talk about my specific experience with the test, I did my test at the Melbourne City Testing Centre, and I had a fairly early appointment at around 10 or 11 AM. What actually ended up happening was that I arrived at my testing centre about an hour early, and that was actually so early that no one else was actually there, and I was a little worried that I had come to the wrong place or I had gotten my testing appointment wrong and I had maybe missed my UCAT. But luckily enough, I just went walking around for about 15 to 20 minutes around the block, and then when I came back, people were finally starting to arrive and the people were there. Once the official test invigilators actually let us in, I realized that the testing center was completely not what I was expecting at all. I was more expecting a large center where there would be lots of bustling people, lots of people taking different tests, but really what it was just us doing the UCAT, maybe 10 of us and one invigilator in this pretty small space. What they made us do is they made us leave our parents behind, and then they took us to a corridor where they took a roll and then made us wait there for quite a while. Another thing that I completely wasn't expecting is that they actually don't take in everyone to do the UCAT at the same time. They actually take each person into the testing room at a different time, so actually people are starting the test at a staggered rate. So by the time I had had my ID checked and I had done all the pre-test checklist things with the invigilator, and when I went into the room, 4 or 5 people had actually already started their test and were into the verbal reasoning section before I had actually even started my test. Obviously everyone gets the full 2 hours that they need, but they just start the tests at different times. I have to say that before I was even let into the computer room, I actually had to wait quite a long time because each person was let in one by one, and each pre-test checking thing takes about 5 minutes. So I was about 4th or 5th in the line, so I had to wait nearly 20 minutes to get into my test. But if you were earlier in the line, you might have to wait less time, and if you're later, you might have to wait more. So do expect that on test day. With the computers in the actual testing room, don't expect fancy iMacs or new desktops or anything like that. The computers, keyboards, and mice they all had were fairly old, but even though they are old, they're still very functional, and I didn't have any problems actually using them. I just had to get used to the keyboard and mouse. Once you get led into the testing room, you just start the test whenever you're ready, and I personally found that the room was not that distracting for me. I know that since people come in once you've actually started your test, you might actually expect it to be a little distracting or noisy, but I didn't find that at all, because by the time people were walking in, I had already started my test and I was already really focused on the verbal reasoning section, and I didn't even really realize that people were walking in or making noise or anything like that. After I finished the test, I was able to take back my belongings from the invigilator, and then I just left the testing center, and after about 20 to 30 minutes, I actually got my results straight away on the day, which was very nice. Keep in mind that this is my specific experience at this specific testing center, so don't expect that yours will be exactly the same, but I hope that this can give you a point of reference that might help to understand what might be going on. Okay, so now let's get into my top 3 tips on how you can actually approach the testing experience so that you can perform as well as you possibly can on UCAT test day. The first tip I have actually doesn't even start on the day of the UCAT, it starts on the day before. And this is that you should take the entire day before your UCAT completely off. I highly recommend that you do this because in the lead up to the UCAT, you probably spend almost 2 weeks working on your UCAT practice almost every day and grinding the test pretty hard. And because of this, your brain will get tired very easily, and it's important that you take a day off before the UCAT so that your brain can fully recover. I actually recommend that if you have school, you should take that day off school, and even if you want to do some practice on the day before, you should please resist that urge and at most do some untimed questions or only just read an AR pattern sheet or some situational judgment scenarios that you might have done before. Do whatever you want on this day to take your mind off the fact that you have the UCAT the next day. Play video games, watch TV, exercise, play music, just do anything except UCAT practice. The second tip I have that will hopefully reduce the amount of stress you're feeling on test day significantly is to set up how you'll be getting to the testing venue well before your test. Because the testing centers can be in weird locations and often really far from your home, it's important to set up a method of transportation to the venue that's stress-free and as easy as possible. I recommend both planning to get there early and having someone to take you there. Getting there early will mean that you'll have time to make up for possible traffic incidents or getting lost on the way to the testing center. I recommend getting to the testing center at least an hour before your test. With having someone to take you there, that will hopefully take the strain off you to manage transportation, and you can just get in a car and get driven to the testing center without having to worry about possibly missing a bus, train, or tram. The third tip I have is that you should try to set up an exam ritual that you use in all of your exams. I'm not a particularly superstitious person, and I don't necessarily believe in the power of inanimate objects, but I do think that having an exam ritual or charms can help you so much with managing the stress of exams. For me, what this is that I actually practice mindfulness for 10 minutes before all of my exams, because I find that it helps me to release any negative thoughts that I might be having and allows me to just focus on myself before the test actually starts. I've actually also read somewhere that practicing mindfulness before a test can help to improve your testing score, so I take some confidence from that as well. I found that in the UCAT, mindfulness actually helped a lot, because in that waiting room corridor, I was waiting for nearly 20 minutes, and during that whole time, I was just closing my eyes, taking some deep breaths and practicing mindfulness, whereas otherwise I might have just been spinning around in my own head with those negative thoughts, which could have made me more anxious and more stressed before the test. If you're not someone who practices mindfulness though, there are many other things that you can set up as exam rituals before your test. For example, you can have lucky charms to keep on you. These can be things like clothing, pens, even small trinkets that you just keep on you on all of your exams. I personally know someone who had lucky socks that they wore on their exam days, but I don't know if those socks got stinky if they had exams 2 days in a row. The main point of these items really is that if you believe you have a lucky charm on you of sorts, then they can hopefully give you some comfort on the exam that will help to reduce the stress that you might be feeling while waiting to be called up for the test or on the morning of the test in general. So those were the tips that I used to help me perform as best as I possibly could on UCAT test day. If you found them helpful, consider subscribing or dropping a like on the video, and make sure to check out this video of me doing the quantitative reasoning subtest live on camera.